have today. Thirdly,
It's better to make a mistake than to do nothing, for it's the indifference of the people that kills a nation.
someone who gets used to his little house and car and doesn't do anything to better himself, including listening not only to our program, but to the ideals, the ideas of many idealistic people in the world. These people who do nothing are helping to kill civilization. Even that famous American, Martin Luther King, who was an exceptionally idealistic person, said that what most bothered him was the indifference of people, people who didn't want to do anything. And the next.
Schools and the press have to be free so as to avoid corruption and decadence in the nation.
And do they happen to be free? Are schools or the press free? Certainly not. They are at the service of the social economic power. For example, when a person chooses a profession nowadays, he thinks, which profession pays the most? Oh, it's this one, so that's what I'll do. Talking about jobs, now pay attention to what I'm going to say here. A person doesn't work because of the work. He works because of the money. He doesn't work for the sake of developing work itself, but for the money that the job will give him, you see. So it's money that determines the lives of human beings. And this makes the human being totally sterile, without life.
Let me add something, Dr. Kepi. There is an inverted idea that if the human being didn't have this motivation, bills to pay at the end of the month, that he would do nothing at all.
It's the contrary.
This despair the person feels when paying his bills or doing something only for money destroys him.
Exactly. Now look at the observation I wrote at the end.
If the United States were free, the entire world would also be free.
I wrote this book, The Decay of the American People and of the United States. I wrote it to show those people that they were no longer free, that they wear golden handcuffs, as Susan Berkeley says. What are golden handcuffs? It's when you are a slave and think you have great wealth. Now, let's look at Thomas Paine, our next founding father. Look what he wrote.
Enlightened America, the founding fathers of the nation, Thomas Paine. First, authority should be reduced to a minimum so as not to impede the freedom of others.
Understand, every person who is powerful ends up impeding freedom. This is why the regime imposed on democracies has a 4-year term for president or chancellor. If you increase this too much, the leader becomes dangerous for a nation, because deep down, he has a lot of really bad attitudes, bad intentions. Secondly,
impede the greedy from exploiting the gullibility of the masses.
And isn't this exploitation exactly what is happening today? It's like what our producer Ivair said. People, even poor people, only vote for the rich. Isn't this interesting? It's because of that idea of Adam Smith's, the creator of capitalism. He said that if a person knows how to make money for himself, then he also knows how to make it for others. Ah, sure, he knows. He knows how to make money for himself and only for himself. Have you ever seen a rich person working for others? He wouldn't be rich otherwise. And when I talk about wealth, I'm not referring to what a good professional earns. I mean real extravagant wealth. Let's see the next.
The dominant class wants to remain in power.
Isn't this what happens? A politician once said that power is like a shot of whiskey, like a drug. A person tries it and never again wants to let it go. So if a person could establish a dictatorship, he would. Let's see fourthly.
The people are obliged to rebel against tyrannical laws and tyrants. So, Thomas Paine was based on John Locke, Berkeley, Rousseau, and Voltaire.
Maybe I don't need to go into this further. Just look. These were incredible leaders who founded the #1 nation in the world. Our work, Analytical Trilogy, is to show people that what brings real wealth, even great economic wealth, is ethics. What generates real riches comes from the good spirit a person has. A rich nation is an ethical nation, and a poor nation is one with no ethics, a nation with a lot of dishonesty. Now, let's look at the ideas of John Adams.
He introduced the separation of the three powers: executive, legislative, and judicial.
This idea was brought from France. It was Montesquieu's idea. There must be three powers. Always three, interesting. As God is, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. It's always three, a perfect number. We have to have these three powers with equal power, so they can control each other. Things aren't exactly like that at the moment. The executive has surpassed the others, because it has the power of the missiles in its hands. Secondly,
he defended the existence of private property.
As long as it is used, right? Thirdly,
education and moral responsibility were given great value.
Fourthly,
only those who own property have an interest in defending what is theirs. The ideal government would be an aristocracy, combined with democracy.
Look, notice that he didn't despise having private property, as long as it's in a certain moderation and is used.
And that everyone should have property, right?
And everyone should have property, of course. Now take a look at the last founding father.
Alexander Hamilton.
What did he say?
The founding fathers thought an unchanging constitution took away the freedom of the people.
Look at this. The process of improving it, of creating a constitution that's always improving, and of course coming from a good ethical structure. Secondly, let's see.
Those who seduce the people end up becoming dictators.
Well, we don't need to go into that further. Thirdly,
human beings are selfish and have bad intentions.
You know, he wasn't a psychiatrist as far as I know. He had no knowledge of psychopathology. But look, isn't this that he was talking about? Pure psychopathology. Let's see, lastly.
It's a constant fight to avoid the dominance of unbalanced individuals.
Very interesting, this.
Hamilton followed the philosophy of Thomas Hobbes and John Locke.
I use these examples to show you why these principles must be applied all over the world, not only in the United States. For any country to develop and to improve, to have dignity, these principles must be present in their constitutions and must be followed. Not like today, where judges, for example, and this comes from English Saxon law, where each judge makes his decisions out of his own head, his own idea. They should only be able to decide based on the Constitution and justice. If a person decides on his own, anyone can be mentally sick, and anyone can do a lot of harm. So, we have to follow the American founding fathers.
That's right. And triological science, too. We'll be back next week.